Hi, I'm Joe Branton for Polymath, and you're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForBassPlayersOnly.com. We're coming to you today from the Stonefield booth at the 2018 NAMM show, Anaheim, California, with our friend Joe Branton. How are you, Joe?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Boy, I just love those Anaheim, California accents.
All right, yeah. It's, I'm pretty used to them now. After this is day 3 of walking around, hanging out in the stand, so I can kind of understand everyone now.
Yeah. Huh? You are a long way from home. You're from where? Brighton, England, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on the south coast of the UK. So
okay.
It's kind of a small city, but it has a really prestigious music scene down there. So we've got quite a famous, really large recording studio called Branton Electric, where The Cure rehearse and play, and loads of other big bands. But because of that studio and because of a couple of other venues and things we've got down there, it just has a real microculture of strange music.
Well, England does have somewhat of a rich musical heritage, I would say. Let's talk about your initial exposure to music. What was that like, your musical upbringing, and how'd you become a bass player?
It's largely on account of, I guess, Brighton. Brighton has a really vibrant prog scene and a math rock scene as well. So loads and loads of weird sort of avant-garde instrumental bands come out of Brighton. Weird time signature bands are a really big thing down there. So. And I guess, that means I grew up listening to King Crimson and Yes and Pink Floyd. So, it's that, I guess, sort of inspires the direction of the music that I play now. And then sort of more contemporaries like the Mars Volta.
Ah, okay. Well, when you first discovered the instrument, who were your bass heroes, your bass influences?
Yeah.
Can I guess Chris Squire and
obviously
Roger Waters?
Yeah, Roger Waters, Chris Squire. But I think for me the first bass player that really got me excited in maybe trying to do different things with a bass was slightly more contemporary, and it was Juan Alderete from the
Mars Volta.
Exactly. So, and he's kind of because before I played Stonefields, I was playing a lot of fretless basses and trying to stack loads of effects and find ways to make basses sound different and weird.
Juan is the guy for that, because he's got, about a billion pedals?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, about a billion. Yeah, they're in or thereabouts.
Yeah. And, how did you, let's back up a little bit though, how did you gravitate toward the bass as an instrument?
I think it comes down to maybe I was slightly later to the game than other friends. I think I picked it up around 15, and I think the people that I wanted to play with, they already played guitar. Everyone needs a bass player, so it was that I hadn't started yet. I needed to fill a job, but I quickly found that was absolutely my calling.
How much of that transition was embracing it, and how much was it kicking and screaming? Play the bass. I don't want to play the bass.
I think it was embracing it. Again, if you think about players like Chris Squire, and at the time I was listening to a lot of US punk rock as well. So people like Matt Freeman from Rancid, they were really they were the centerfold of those bands. It wasn't really the guitarist. So I think for me, kind of in a sort of egotistical way, the bass never. In the sort of music I wanted to play, the bass never seemed like the instrument in the background.
Okay, well, you mentioned U.S. punk bands. I've interviewed Mike Watt a couple of times, and he thought that he has always thought the bass should be on equal footing with the other bands. These are not my words, these are Mike Watt's words. Used to be the bass was the instrument you gave to your retarded friend to stand over there. And I didn't like that. I didn't think that was right. I thought the bass should be on par with the rest of the band. So was he one of the U.S. punk bands you were listening to?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, I think, Firehose,
Iggy and the Stooges, whoever, all the other.
Exactly. I guess the punk pop was maybe It was slightly more punk pop orientated because I really like Rancid. So with that came, I guess, the more popular bands like Green Day and like Blink-182. Okay. I mean, I think Mark Hoppus was much less a lead bass player, but he certainly introduced me to the ideas of chording a lot, which I apply quite a lot to my band now. So using it kind of as a rhythm guitar, and I think in as far as like fills are concerned, and playing root lines and inserting sort of little nuggets of melody, I think Mike Dermott was a real sort of inspiration for that sort of thing.
Well, let's talk about your band, Polymath. Yeah. How would you describe the music if we have to describe music? It's all music. It's good or it's bad. You like it, you don't. What kind of band is Polymath?
We're an instrumental prog band. But because prog is kind of a dwindling genre, I guess, or maybe it's not something that young people are listening to. We often get referred to as a math band or a math rock band, and certainly like the festivals we play and the bands that we play with are all math rock, whereas we'd always consider ourselves a bit more concept, and math rock I think is kind of quite major orientated, whereas we'd be very sloppy and very minor orientated if that's the sort of way of looking at the difference between the two genres. So
okay, I did mention that we happen to be sitting at the Stonefield booth at NAMM. You are a Stonefield artist since sometime last year. I've gotten to know Tom Stanley over the years, and I haven't quite figured out how to make a trip to New Zealand yet, but I'm still trying to figure out how I could do that. But tell me what attracted you to Stonefield, which model you play, why you like it, and anything else you'd like to share about Stonefield.
Sure.
And or Tom himself. Tom with two M's. Tom.
Yeah, Tom. I think 2015 I went to the London bass show, which I'd been to every year, and I think that was the first year Tom had been there with Stonefield, I think. But yeah, the booth was there and quite large and central, and the basses were not like anything else that was there. They were completely new and very unique, and whilst they were sort of the basses at the time, they were very high end. They had like a real sort of workhorse feel to them, which I kind of liked. I was immediately attracted to the huge like baseball bat necks. I'd been playing like 51 reissue P basses before, and this made the Stonefield basses made my 51P bass feel like a jazz bass, in sort of comparison. The necks were so huge, and I loved that. I was shown them by an Eden guy called JD Short, who's the he's a bass demonstrator for Eden Amplification, who I know quite well. He lives over here in California, and he came over to me and was like, "You've got to check out these basses." He's actually friends with Freak Bass, who is an artist for Stonefield. So that was the first time I checked them out.
Yes, Tom told me I was a catalyst for him and Freak Bass getting together, because it was around my booth or something at the London Bass Guitar Show that they hooked up. So I think Tom probably owes me some money for that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think it took maybe a year after that for Tom to get distribution in the UK for Stonefield, and I think kind of at around that time last year, Polymath had just been booked to do a series of video adverts of sort of live performance tracks for Boss Effects for their new MS3 looper and a couple of other effects as well. And so I got hold of Z Distribution, who were working with Tom, and said, "Look, I'm going to be doing these videos. I know the guys at Z quite well, so I was like, I'm going to be doing these videos. If you want, and then I could, I'll play one of the Stonefields in the video, because I know that I'd met Tom by this point. He was a really nice fella, and I kind of wanted to like help the brand in the UK a little bit by playing them in that. And yeah, after I'd done that and played in the video, Tom offered me to stay with the brand and keep playing the bass, which was great.
Worked out well for everyone. How about the future? What else is coming up that you haven't already mentioned? Is there anything that you've always wanted to do that you just haven't gotten around to yet?
Well, I mean, the Polymath are this year in April releasing our first double concept album. Like, we've had 2 albums before, but this will be our first double record and it's a reversible spined concept album.
You have a title for it, yeah?
Yeah, it's called House of Wisdom, or it can be called We Are the Devil. It depends how you want to listen to it. You can listen to it A, B, C, D, or C, D, A, B, and you can fold the record round either way, and it will have different artwork and a different title depending on how you want to listen to it. But it's definitely the most ridiculous prog thing we've ever done. We really wanted to make something that was as bonkers as it could possibly be, which was tough because these days, there's not a lot of money in record labels putting out instrumental prog bands. So, that on top of the fact that we wanted to put out a record-only double album, and we've put things like hidden tracks in the grooves, the hidden track underneath the label in the middle, so it's very expensive to...
In the grooves, are you talking about vinyl?
Yeah, we'd only released on vinyl actually, and obviously digital download and vinyl, but vinyl is a big thing in kind of prog and math rock. I think most bands just release.
If you would have told somebody in 1986, 87, 88 that down in the 2010s, close to 2020, that vinyl would be making such a resurgence, I think they would have said you were nuts.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, it's so expressive. I mean, it does obviously sound better, but being able to do things like hide a track in the grooves, I love that idea. And that was from like listening to sort of old Frank Zappa stuff, and I think there was a record that I owned. I think it was a Monty Python. Monty Python, the three-sided album. Yeah, the three-sided album.
And depending on where the needle fell in the tone arm, you'd either get one set of grooves or a completely other set of grooves.
But you could put that album on 100 times and only hear one version of it. You could own that for your entire life and maybe never hear the third side, which was great. And I always loved that. And I really wanted to do that with this record.
Leave it to those guys. Well, this is fascinating, Joe. Let me ask you one more question before we wrap it up here. What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music. Can you imagine that?
I mean, no. Something outside of music. If I wasn't a bass player, and I can't replace that with another instrument.
Only drums. Right. No, just kidding.
If I couldn't be a musician, I'd still want to be heavily involved in music. So I run a guitar podcast. So if I wasn't also in a band, I think I would throw everything into just running a podcast.
Okay, not too far removed, I don't think, from what you're doing, but I'm sure it would be great. Joe Branton, great getting to know you, and thanks for spending a few minutes with us. Much luck and continued success to you always. On location at the Stonefield booth at the 2018 NAMM Show, Anaheim, California, with Joe Branton. I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.